Be talking about the truth of...
Can we do that again?
Why?
Because my line was weird. I was like,
Your name?
I did. I said my name weird. I was like, I'm Matt.
How long have you had that name?
My whole life.
Welcome to Schoolworthy. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Matt.
And today we're going to be discussing some of the things that they don't tell you about college.
So you may have heard that college is important, but who is college for and who might be better off avoiding it?
Yeah, I mean, I know whenever we were in high school, it was always, that was the next step, whether you wanted it to be or not. That's what you were aiming for. And a lot of people didn't know exactly what they wanted to do in life. And that's fine, even for a couple years into college. You don't have to know. You're coming into adulthood and you don't have to know what you want to do. And you may change your mind, and that's perfectly okay. But for the people that do need it, you know...
So the people that would benefit from college, I would call this the low-hanging fruit. The things that's really easy to know if you're going to need college or not would be doctors, lawyers, things like that. You cannot do those things without having post-high school education. However, there's a big variety of jobs that you don't have to actually have any formal education beyond a high school diploma to get started in. And one of the things that I noticed for me, and I noticed a lot of other students, is that we get in there, we start doing our studies, and then we might change our major or something because you realize that you don't like your field of study. But
that's okay.
It's a lot cheaper to do that by going ahead and getting in that field, realizing I hate it, and then you've not set foot on a college campus for it. But the people that it's for could also be people who have gotten into a field, they feel like they've gotten as far as they can with what they have, and now they need to go back to college so that they can get a higher ranking position. And there's tons of situations like that where like you might have a certain job and you've worked your way up to the top of what you can get without having some kind of certificate or formal education that once you have, you can go into a better paying job. That's a good thing for people who have decided this is the career path that I want to follow, and I want to invest more into success in that career path.
And a lot of people, a lot of jobs specifically, they will help you in paying for that because they want you to have more experience. They want you to have more knowledge because it helps their company in the long run. So I know when we were in college, we had a lot of people that were not our age, that were a little bit older, well-established, had families, and they were coming back so that they could do something more with their life, that they just weren't satisfied with where they ended up.
Right. I think it's a really, for me personally, I went to college right out of high school, and I think that's both the best and worst decision I made with that, because at this point I probably wouldn't do it because the career path that I've followed doesn't really require me to have formal education because I'm more of an entrepreneur. However, if I had waited longer, I would have probably majored in business.
Really?
Because that would have fed into the career path that I chose a little more than what I did choose. However, I chose what I chose, which was a criminal justice degree, because I was thinking that I might want to go on and be a lawyer, which I still don't think was a bad idea. It was just at the point that I had completed that, I did not want to spend that much more time in school. And so while I set myself up to be able to go to law school, I didn't want to continue that. But on the flip side, if I had continued that, I would have been very happy that I just went straight out of high school, because being a lawyer requires 3 years beyond actual college. So you're looking at a minimum of 7 to 8 years from the time you graduate high school. So it could have been a really good decision, but it could have been a really bad decision. And for most people, it's going to make sense for you to wait a little while, decide what it is that you really want to do with your life. And if you find an employer that's willing to pay some of your classes, financing is a nightmare for college because you're constantly juggling all kinds of different responsibilities, and if you drop them, you just drop them, and it's just something you have to make up for either later on in your courses, or you might not have a job anymore depending on what it is that you've dropped.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I went to a university originally, and my original major was in psychology, and then I realized my favorite part of the psychology was getting into minds of criminals, and to which I switched criminal justice, and then we ended up at the same school, and I never actually finished, but
it was a fun field of study.
oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
We definitely, and we're probably all on watch lists now. That's a joke that we have in the criminal, just because the things that we have to research for our papers
the things
probably
we still
flagged
research.
us.
What do you? We still research these things.
Her more than me.
Yeah. I'll admit that. I did not finish. I ended up making a mistake with relationships and moving on, but I did get to my senior year, so I was mostly, at that point it was just like
you got the gist.
Internships.
It's all the formal stuff at that point. You got to write senior papers and just extra stuff, but really you've learned what you need to learn at that point.
Well, I know the first year, and my brother is just out of his first year. He is finding out that the first year is the core, the basics, and it's the science and the math and the social studies and so on and so forth, and not everybody is good at those things. And now my brother is, but I am not. So I did not do well on the math and science. That's not what I signed up for.
I am the same way. If I had to get a college degree on my math ability, I wouldn't have made it. I did a whole lot of research papers, research development, writing papers, things like that. And I mean, a lot of times people are kind of good at one or the other, and every now and then you'll have this rare lucky person that can write a really great paper and also solve tons of math formulas. I was one of the people that could just write you a really great paper, but don't ask me to solve an algebraic equation. I don't get it. So, so it's not for
right there
everybody,
with you.
And not everything is for everybody. So, and another good example of somebody who needed college, I have a friend that went to school for chemistry, and the job that he has now pays 6 figures, and there is no way he would have that job without having some kind of formal education. However, it's important to note that when he first entered that field, he had a job where he was only required to have just a basic chemistry knowledge. And the job that he has now is a job that he got by leveraging that education and the experience he got in his first job. So even if college is something that you need, you're still going to need experience to go with that. And I can speak on that in terms of like being a lawyer. So lawyers, you come out, you pass the bar, but that doesn't automatically mean you're going to get a job. And a lot of lawyers that want to start their own practice don't just start their own practice. They study under somebody else or practice with the district attorney's office for a long time before they get to the point of actually opening their own practice. So even if what you're doing requires college, don't ignore the fact that you're going to need real experience in certain things, even if you do gain and earn a college degree.
And the other thing is technical colleges. No, I jumped from college to college, so this is another one that I did go to. I didn't so much enjoy it, but I could see the benefit on things like cooking, like being a chef. You need that hands-on experience. Artist, you need that hands-on experience. And a lot of that, you're just getting textbooks at college, right? I mean, you're just reading out of a book and hoping for the best. And these schools are tailored to exactly your field and what you plan to do. Electricity, electricians, plumbing, so on and so forth.
Right.
And I think those are great alternatives.
Right. So tech school is something that if you are interested in being in any of the trades, college should be the last thing in your mind, because they value experience in that so much that you would be much better served to go find a technical school program. If you're going to be a welder, if you're going to be an electrician, if you want to be I think even a contractor needs some education, but you can get a lot of that through apprenticeship studies and tech school. You don't have to go to college. So I think, and it might not be so much this way, but our generation, we've all agreed that we felt very pressured to go to college, and some of us that was right for. Some of us it wasn't right for, but
and it's okay if it's okay if it's not for you. And I think there's a lot of stigma around, oh, you didn't finish, or oh, you didn't go to college, so you're not smart enough, you're not college.
But that's starting to go away. People are starting to realize that there are people that come out of college that are not, they still don't know the things that they need to know to do a specific job.
If college is not for you, that's fine. Don't let somebody make you feel stupid. You know what's best for you, and college is not absolutely required. That being said, let's get into the applying process. Now, I think you mentioned you applied to 2 different colleges?
I only applied to 2, and I didn't really want to go too far away from home because I just felt like that was going to incur more cost than what I was willing to bear. So yeah, I only did 2, got into 1, didn't get into the other one, wasn't smart enough. So
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Not smart enough.
I knew that's not what I'm saying. I didn't know you guys didn't get into the other one. I had the opposite feeling. I wanted to get as far away from home as possible. But stay in the state because out-of-state costs are ridiculous.
Out-of-state tuition is a nightmare.
And I did. I got at least 5 hours away from home. And, I had applied to quite a few just for backup, but I knew kind of which one I wanted from the beginning, and that's the one I went for, and that's one I ended up on.
So what do they need to know?
They need to know
admissions.
Apply to as many as you can. Now, there is a fee, usually, to applying. And I think the average is like $30 to $50, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is, you need to have a backup plan for your backup plan. Because if one doesn't work, another one will. And community college isn't any better or worse than any other college. It's all the same.
There's a lot of people that will try to tell you that a degree from this place is worth less. And really what they're getting at is that there's certain connections you might be able to make in one place versus another, but you will always have those opportunities because you're around like-minded people. So if you want to leverage some of the relationships friendships, everything you build in college, that's up to you how you do that. It's not determined by, oh, well, you didn't go to this one university, so your degree is worthless. That's not how that works. And oftentimes I've actually heard several people, and I don't know if this is true or not, I went to one college, but I've heard several people that say that where I went to college, people transferred to a bigger university and then ended up coming back because tuition costs. But no, let me say that again. So where I went to college was a community college, and there were several people that I had talked to who went to a bigger, more notable state university from that. And then I got to talking to them a while after they had been there, and they said that the curriculum was actually not as difficult. They said that professors, and I quote, basically ask students to do their homework. Well, where I was from, if you didn't do your homework or you didn't study or do any of that stuff, they didn't care. You just failed the test, and better luck next time, kids. So I mean, I think that sometimes the whole idea that a bigger university is going to provide a better education is not always true. And one of the reasons for that is they have bigger class sizes. Yes. You're going to get a smaller class size at a community college, which means you're going to get a more hands-on, or should I say a more personal education, which is going to be more tailored for you. So if you're not understanding something and you'll communicate it with your professor, they will oftentimes have more time to focus on just you, whereas at the big universities you have class sizes of 70 to 100 people. Those professors have the same amount of time to spread across more students. So there are some serious differences, and just because you didn't go to a big university does not mean that your education is not good.
And I can agree with that. My first year was at a university. I didn't know any of my professors. They had no clue who I was. I was just a name on a piece of paper. They didn't care to work with me, whatever. But then when I did switch, we knew the professors, more intimately, not saying that in a weird way.
So she transferred from one of the bigger universities to where I was going. So
no.
She keeps saying
I went from... I did, eventually.
I cut that out of the video.
No.
Here I am thinking I know.
I went to a big university for a year, came back, went to a tech school because it was free and sounded like a good idea. But then I realized that those only took me so far, and they wouldn't transfer over to the community college. So I jumped from the tech to the community college and lost a lot of my credits.
Wow.
Because of that. But
so yeah, not all credits transfer. So
no.
if you're a student that's thinking about transferring from one college to another, make sure that the classes that you are taking there are going to transfer to where you plan to graduate from. That's very important, because you might find yourself having to retake classes because one university doesn't recognize the legitimacy of a course that was provided by another university. They have their own standards a lot of times.
Especially coming from a technical school. Technical schools do not transfer as easily as a university to community or vice versa.
So that means that if you're going to go to a tech school, it might be best to plan to finish either in tech schools or at the very same tech school that you started at, which is an easier way of doing things. Transferring and kind of picking your life up and going somewhere else can be a little bit stressful too. So if you can do it all at one place, especially if you're doing tech school, you're not going to be spending years and years in those courses. You're going to be spending months, maybe a year to 2 years tops, and then you're out of those programs and you should be in the workforce, which now you can travel wherever you want and work.
And I know the other thing you were speaking about is that you didn't want to go too far away from home, where I did. Some people definitely want a scenery change when they're going into college. But that also meant that you didn't live in a dorm. You still lived at home.
Yeah, so I didn't live on campus. So my first year in college, well, my whole experience in college would have been different because I never lived on campus. I commuted. So. But
also, here's the great thing about that is that we live in a small town. So you already know everybody. So it's not like you're not going to socialize. But on campus, in a bigger university, in a bigger college, you're not going to know even a quarter of the people that go there. So to live on campus gives you the opportunity to socialize, to go to events, to make more friends, to meet more people. And if that's something you're interested in, which was a big thing for me, and I know this is a female thing, probably.
No, I felt that too.
What I'm getting
not living on campus was definitely, it definitely felt like it provided less opportunities in the way of socializing.
But I also wanted a dorm where I didn't have to share a bathroom with the whole floor. I've seen those movies. They are terrifying. Why would you want to do that? So with my thing, you want your privacy. You just want your privacy. And you don't want everybody in your business. And you don't want to have to go shower in front of everybody. And whatever the case may be. And I was happy to have that.
So definitely make sure that you fully understand what the living situations are going to be if you choose to live on campus. And some universities, I do believe, require you to live on campus for your first year. So some people that are going into college, into certain universities, are not really going to have an option. So you definitely want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into going into that environment.
Well, another thing is a lot of universities for that first year don't allow you to have a car either on campus. Ooh. So that can be a problem if you have
a job, you need to commute. If you got a job at the college, maybe that's not such a big deal, but those jobs are sometimes not easy to get. And I mean, I know the only reason I had an on-campus job was because I was certified to be a lifeguard and they needed a lifeguard, and it allowed me to just walk into a job. But if you are just trying to get a job with no certification or anything, which most people are going to be in that situation in college, I mean, definitely make sure that you know what that situation is going to be like. And if you go to a university somewhere that is not allowing you to have a car and you need to commute to a job, that might not work for you at all.
And the same goes for, like, I know where I went, you could have a vehicle your first year, but a lot of people didn't. So, like, they needed to go to Walmart to get groceries, and they had to find a ride.
Carpool, make friends.
Yeah, I mean, they had to find a way to get there because at this point in time, there was not Uber, there was not Lyft, and that is really showing our age.
Yeah, now you got all these handy things that we didn't have then.
But, it was just one of those things you had to figure it out. And if you wanted to go home, a lot of times times family members would have to travel to come get you. And it sucked. I was thankful to have a car. But I understand that there are more expenses that come with that as well. And I think that's the next thing we need to get into is the expenses of college.
The expenses. So, expenses vary greatly. Typically, community colleges and technical schools are much more affordable options. That was one of the reasons that I chose a community college. I started at the same college that I finished at, and ultimately I was okay with that. But originally I'd planned on transferring and graduating from a bigger university, but by the time I got to that point where I was ready to do that, I was just kind of ready to finish what I had started and be out of college so that I could be earning money, because as you get older, it gets more and more difficult to not be earning some kind of income. So expense-wise, you really want to consider what it is you can afford. Now, there's also lots of financial aid options, and I don't think we should get too far into that because that could be a whole video, because what you apply for and what you qualify for, that's a case-by-case basis. But
look into them and definitely
yes,
apply to everything you possibly can.
because you will get some financial help, and anything that you can get definitely is it's going to help, and you're going to need all the help you can get. So
that is true. Now, on the other side of things, if you are living on campus, you've got to factor in your meal plans. You've got to factor in your housing costs. You have to factor in the fact that the meal plans won't cover everything. I mean, you're going to still have to have some sort of groceries. You're going to have gas for that car if you do have a car. Just stuff like that.
A ton of expenses that people don't think about. I was totally guilty of that. I mean, I when I started, I had a lot of financial aid, and it covered everything. So I didn't have to pay anything out of pocket for my books, for my school, or anything. However, I still had the expenses of gas. I had my vehicle. I didn't have a meal plan. I commuted back and forth, so there was no meal plan for me. I just basically handled all of that myself. So even though all of my expenses for school was paid for by financial aid, there was still a gap, and that's where I had to work a job and go to school at the same time to be able to afford to feed myself and pay for the gas to go back and forth to the school that I didn't have to pay for out of pocket. So that was really great. But even if you get 100% financial aid, don't think that that's going to cover everything, because it won't.
It won't, no. And it'd be great if you have parents that are willing to help you out, but not all parents are as stable as some, and they can't. They just literally can't. And that's not necessarily their fault. That's not. That's just the way it is.
That was the situation that I was in. I was I laugh about it now, but when I was getting close to graduating high school, I sat down with my parents and I said, "Well, I want to go to college," and they just looked back at me and said, "Well, I hope you can get financial aid for it." So. I mean, and that's not a fault of my parents. It's just college is expensive, and they were tired of spending money on a child, and they're ready to be able to save some of their own money.
You had 18, you were out.
Yeah, I had 18 years of mooching. It was time to
good luck.
Figure it out on your own, kid. And luckily, I did get financial aid. The truth is, if I didn't get financial aid, I wouldn't have been able to go. Yeah. That's the simple truth for me personally.
And that's some of the reason that I did stop going, is because I had gained so much debt that it was just overwhelming and I couldn't continue to do it. So responsibility. Now that's my favorite one, because I don't know.
You're gonna have all the freedom in the world, enough freedom to flunk out of college.
Yes.
And if you don't start to develop some responsibility and some discipline about how you're spending your time, and you might have heard this, you're gonna hear it a lot in college, especially if you have some kind of first year experience thing, but how you spend your time is important, because a lot of the material that you're being given is gonna be a big amount of material, and you're not gonna be able to learn what you need to learn to pass a test in a classroom. You're going to have to take those materials and continue to study outside of that to be able to come in and pass a test, get the grades you need in the classes that you need to maintain your financial aid. So if you go into college with financial aid, you can very easily lose it if your grades slip too far. So definitely make sure that you're spending your time wisely, and you can allocate time for fun. You should. because it could be one of the most, it could be one of the most fun experiences you ever have in your life. But some people get too far carried away with that and flunk out of college. There were several people that ended up coming back to the community college that I went to because they went crazy, spent mom and dad's money, let their grades slip. Mom and dad got mad about that and said, you got to come back to where it's going to be cheaper. And that's not a fun situation to be in when you thought you were going to graduate from a good university that you were able to get into, you know?
Well, the other thing about responsibility for me was that I made the mistake, and a lot of people do. Going into college the first year, you choose your classes. And, you know, you've been in school for so long, you think, I can get up in the morning and go to these classes just like you did in high school. And whenever you're left on your own free will, that won't happen. I mean, there were so many classes I missed, and it was like, I'm going to sleep in. And you can't do that because you won't fare well in the end. So you have to be, I would suggest at least noon or later to start your classes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on ultimately what schedule you like. Towards the end of college, my desire for my schedule had changed, and I was scheduling classes that were like at 8 o'clock in the morning because I needed some more time later in the day to be able to work. But when I first got in college, I was working on campus. My schedule was so flexible that I was pretty much able to schedule my classes at like 10:30, 12 o'clock, and I even had some classes that ran as late as like 8:50 at night. That was the latest class I ever had, and that was the end of class, not the beginning. And that change of schedule is something you want to stay conscious of and make sure that whatever schedule you're setting, you can keep because of your sleep schedule and because of your work schedule. And if you're one of the lucky people that don't have to work in college, then you can pretty much schedule things as you want. But if you have other responsibilities, it really matters how you're scheduling your classes and if you should be letting yourself sleep in the morning. Are you a morning person or are you a night owl? That is very important. You want to be at your best when you're doing your classes, and if you are not a morning person and you're scheduling morning classes, you're starting to set yourself up for failure or just being miserable. And that's something that's important to take into account when you're scheduling your classes, is everything, all the other responsibilities that you have in your life.
Well, also, you can easily overload yourself. I mean, they recommend, 12 to 15 hours. That may have changed since we've been in school.
Only one time did I do 15 credit hours, and it required a lot of attention and a lot of time management. I did not do that until I was about to graduate. I was the most responsible version of myself I've ever been. I don't know if I'm responsible yet, but I was responsible enough to maintain a 15 credit hour course load, because if I didn't do 15 credit hours that semester, I was going to have to go for another semester. So it was kind of...
That's the thing. They tell you 4 years of college, but it's coming out to be not 4 years of college.
They lied when they said... That just makes me so mad. They said that college was going to be 4 or 5 years. Took me 7 years.
They never said 5.
7 years. Nobody told me. 7 years. I'm not proud to admit that. But
no.
I was doing like part-time college and I was doing part-time work. So, I mean, the only way college is only going to take you 4 or 5 years, big truth here, only way that you're going to get it done that quick is if you're taking 12 to 15 credit hours every semester. If you are taking anything
possibly
less than that,
going summer classes too, because I know I did a few of those.
Summer classes are intense too. You need to be ready to 100% focus on that for sure.
They are. They're much faster paced.
I wouldn't suggest summer classes for anybody unless they had at least had 2 semesters of college under their belt. Because when you go into the summer classes, they tend to be double the pace of the rest of the classes. And if you aren't ready for the pace of the normal classes, the summer classes are going to come at you way too quick. So,
do you have a little trouble with the summer class?
I actually didn't, because I waited. It was so far into my college stint that by the time I started taking summer classes, it was because I was ready to get my degree over. And when I went in there and they were like, hey, we're going to basically cover an entire semester's material in 2 months, I was prepared for that. But if I had went into that when I was first starting, I think that would have scared the crap out of me.
Well,
honestly.
Also, I think it really counts that, you do the summer classes in your field of study, because if you do it like science or math or something that you don't care about already, you're not going to be interested. Once you get into your actual major and it's something you're passionate about, which is something that you have to you have to go into something you're passionate about to be able to continue. You have to go into something you enjoy. And at that point, it becomes a little less work and a little more interesting and entertaining. And
yeah, it's still going to feel like work, but at least you're highly interested in the things that you're studying. And so it makes you feel like what you're doing, there's more point in it. There's more purpose for what you're doing, even if it's just that you're enjoying what you're doing. So, to recap, we kind of talked about who college is for, some of the admission stuff, some things that you guys might need to know that nobody's really going to tell you. So, I guess let's just bring it all kind of back around. So, is college for you? That's something you have to ask yourself. Nobody but you can decide that. So you have to figure out where you want to go with your career and first decide, is college for me?
And it's okay to change your mind.
It is okay to change your mind.
Because you're 18. You're not expected to know where you want your entire life to go in a matter of months, you know?
And if you're not 18 and you're watching this, it's okay to go later in life too, by the way.
It is.
College is not just for 18-year-olds.
No, it's not. I mean, it may seem awkward at first, but I mean, I had quite a few friends that were not even near my age range.
And at a community college more so, because I was surprised at how many people that I met that were like 40 and up in college. And a lot of these people were returning to get this education because they had went as far as they could without the education in their careers. And most of these people, by the time they got this, they were going to get, like, once they had graduated with the degree they were after, they were going to get a job promotion. That's a great reason to go to school. And a lot of those people had other businesses paying for their college too. And
that's the best way to do it.
It is.
You know, if you can go straight into a job that you want, especially now with everybody hiring left and right, you know, get your foot in the door and then talk to them about college if that's something you want to do. Or, you know, if it's just something you want to learn, if it's something you're passionate about, you want to know more, that's okay too. You know, you can go just to learn and you don't have to use that. Most people that get degrees, I don't know the actual percentage, but there's a study out there that most people that do get degrees don't even go into their field of study.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look at that for myself. But I'm a statistic of that. So I went into entrepreneurship, and I should be working in a jail or in some kind of administrative role in the criminal justice system. That's what I was educated on. But I decided that after all of that, I wanted to do something different, and I went into entrepreneurship. But the important thing that I wanted to include this for me is that I didn't actually use my degree, but just because I didn't use my degree doesn't mean I'm not using my degree. One of the most valuable skills that I think I have is the ability to critically reason and to research. This has helped me in entrepreneurship because it helps me avoid pitfalls in logic. It helps me critically analyze whether or not making a certain move for my business is something I should do or something that I should forego. So some of the skills that I still use now, I learned in college, but I didn't have to learn those from college. I could have learned them from other things. But when I was finishing my degree, I was doing it because I liked what I was doing. And I realized that most people were there to get a job. I was there because I actually liked to learn things. And I'm sure that other people feel the same also and want a job at the same time. For me, it was hard not to notice that there were a lot of people that were there just for a job. And I think if you're just there for a job, some people can only go that route. If you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to any number of those things, but there are so many other vocations that you could just go to tech school or you could just start gaining some experience and worry about college later.
And a lot of those people that do go specifically for jobs or for money increases without any passion behind it or interest, they don't fare well. A lot of times they don't end up getting their diploma. And that's not just them, because clearly I didn't get mine, but it's harder to get through whenever it's not something you're interested in.
It is. And the other thing that sometimes people do is they go through college, they get that certificate or they get that degree, and they go into the world and then realize they don't like that field of study. I changed before I did that. I finished my degree, but I knew that was going to happen to me. That I would get into the field and be like, no, I really don't like this. So it is okay to change your mind. It is okay to, make a change. Probably best not to wait until you graduate college like I did to decide that you didn't like that. But even then, I could use that to get a job that just requires a college degree. So when you're looking at jobs that ask for a college degree, a lot of times they just want you to have a degree. They don't really care so much what it's in.
They want to see that you stuck it out for 4 years and you could commit to something for that long, because they need people for that long, if not longer.
Mm-hmm. And disclaimer on that, if you're trying to do something in the science field, a criminal justice degree is not going to do that for you. So some things are very specific, but the vast majority of jobs that just require a degree for you to prove that you know what you're doing or that you will be committed to the job, they just want to see a degree. So even though I decided that I didn't want to be in the criminal justice field, I could have chose to use that in another capacity, and it wouldn't have been all for nothing. So even if you are watching this and you're at the end of a degree and you think, man, I just don't know what I want to do with my life still, stay the course, finish your degree, and know that there will be options for you out there that are not necessarily in your field of study.
Yeah, I mean, they may require a couple extra classes, but you've done
nothing you can't handle if you've made it this far.
You've done the bulk of the work. It's good. So, if it is for you, great. We wish you the best. I think we both enjoy learning, so it works out well for us, whether we got a degree or not. If that's not for you, or if you need to take a gap year to decide, it's your path. Don't let anybody have you stray from that path, because it's your life in the end, and you have to live with it every day. They don't. So.
Well, I think we could probably go on and on about this, but we need to probably stop. And if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments. Somebody else in the world might answer. We might answer. I would love to be helpful. If you're thinking about this and you're watching this video and you're like, well, you guys have droned on a lot, but you still haven't answered my question, ask it below. We know the answer more than likely, or somebody else knows the answer, and
we probably have a whole lot more to say on it. So
we could. I think we've just kind of glazed over, even though this is a pretty long video. We've kind of glossed over a lot of these things, and it's such a complex topic and so detailed, and it's all so very unique to you too. So your answers to some of these questions may be different. And one of the big things about college, and we should leave them with this, one of the big things about college is that you need to learn to think for yourself.
Yeah.
Ask yourself what you believe about something, and that takes research, development, and experience, knowledge. You have to take the time to do that. And so if you're not sure where you're going yet, take the time to think about that before you take the college plunge.
That's true. Get to know yourself, know what you want. I think that's all we have. Leave a comment below if you like this, if you have any questions, if there's other things you want us to talk about. Like, subscribe. See you next time.